Greetings and salutations, everyone. My name is Andrew Kirchhoff, and welcome to my YouTube channel. Today, we're going to be talking about the Fantasy Football Week 9 quarterback rankings. I'm going to begin by going over my two starts of the week at the quarterback position to try to convince you on these two specific guys and why they should specifically start this coming week. I'm also going to follow that with a couple statistics at the quarterback position to see who really has the best and worst matchups going into Week 9 of the fantasy football season so that I can help you guys out with your decision making going forward. And I'm going to end the video with my 1 through 18 rankings at the quarterback position. As we all know, there are 6 teams on bye, so many of us are struggling to find a quarterback that we can stream, pick up, and play this coming week. I'm going to help you guys out with that with my 1 through 18 rankings. Now, before we begin, I just want to thank all of you who have subscribed to my YouTube channel. For those of you who haven't, there's a subscribe button down there. Go on and click on that, and you're going to continue to get my content on a daily basis throughout the regular season and sometimes into the postseason. We'll see how that goes. But either way, thank you all of you who continue to comment, like, and subscribe to my videos, my YouTube channel specifically. And anyway, just a big thanks. Let's go ahead and move on. Let's get right into it. Hey, everybody, how's it going? All right, so we're doing this quarterback video a little late. Usually we get it out by Wednesday, but it's been a weird week, so let's just let's audible a little bit. Let's transition and let's figure this out. Okay, so the first two guys I want to talk about for today when it comes to the quarterback position, it's Russell Wilson and Ryan Fitzpatrick, my two starts of the week this week. Now, many of you may only have Russell Wilson, and you're thinking, well, why is Russell Wilson a start of the week? Shouldn't I be starting him every single week? Well, this is basically for those of you who may have picked up Russell Wilson earlier on in the season because his performances weren't fantastic. He didn't look like the Russell Wilson that usually shows up by the end of the season, right? Russell Wilson started off slow. Many of you may have been able to pick him up off of the waivers earlier on in the season, and now you sit here contemplating, should I be able to start Ben Roethlisberger, Russell Wilson, maybe even Ryan Fitzpatrick because you just picked him up off waivers, and you're thinking, who should I be starting? Well, just a couple statistics I want to throw out with Russell Wilson so far this season, man. We know, and I've been preaching it for the last couple of weeks, Russell Wilson, as the season progresses, continues to get better. That's how he works. He works off of, starting slow. Then by midway through the season, he gets into full form, and he is unstoppable. There's reasons why that Russell Wilson has thrown 30-plus touchdowns. And, I think it was last season, he threw 34 total touchdowns, and it's absolutely insane. So what has Russell Wilson done as of late to convince us that he should absolutely be starting? And for sure, start of the week into the matchup against the Los Angeles Chargers. Well, specifically, it's the last 3 performances that Russell Wilson has put up. He's thrown 9 touchdowns and 1 interception in the last 3 games that he's played this season. Fantasy-wise, in 6-point per passing touchdown, 25.9, 26.8, and 29.4 fantasy points in the last 3 games. Again, it's 3 touchdowns per game, only 1 interception in that time span. He's been on fire, and he continues to be good. Looking at his schedule as of right now, this is basically a PSA, right? Rest of season, Russell Wilson looks like a quarterback that can honestly take you to where you need to go. For those of you who are struggling, don't have the perfect record, this is a guy that is going to be able to lead you. Playing against the Chargers this week, sure. Chargers have a middle-of-the-pack defense, and I don't think that middle-of-the-pack defense is going to be able to force the issue and give Russell Wilson the trouble that is going to be needed to stop him. With the running game that the Seattle Seahawks has presented as of this season, it only helps Russell Wilson going forward. He has the weapons. Ed Dixon just came back this past week, and this week against the Chargers, he's going to feast. And then the rest of the season, right? He plays the Rams in Week 10. Could be a struggle, but he's already passed his bye week, so no big deal. Last time he played against the Rams, it wasn't much of a struggle. They put up 30 points against the Rams defense. Then he goes into Green Bay. Boom. That's an easy matchup. Carolina should be pretty easy. San Francisco, Minnesota, and San Francisco. Okay, so just imagine this. In the fantasy playoffs, when you get there, he has to play Minnesota in Week 14, which is meant for many of us, that's the first round of our fantasy playoffs. Honestly, I have no big deal. I don't think it's a big deal. I think he'll be fine there. The next week after that, in the semifinals for many of us, or the quarterfinals, excuse me. He plays against the San Francisco 49ers, where he's going to tear them apart. In the last 4 weeks of the season, he plays the 49ers twice. That's just going to be easy pickings. And in Week 16, you ready for this? In Week 16, he plays against the Kansas City Chiefs. So far, they haven't been great on defense. But on top of that, if they have good enough record, they're not going to bring out all their starters. It might be Russell Wilson just blowing through and picking up a W. We'll see. But either way, this coming week, he's been on fire. His pieces are all there, whether it's Tyler Lockett, David Moore, Doug Baldwin. No matter how much he's struggling, he is still a piece of this offense. Chris Carson and the running game. This offensive line is much improved. Ed Dixon coming back from his injury. Everything looks like Russell Wilson is going to be at full force going forward, and I like him a lot this week. You'll see it from the rankings, but he is an absolute start from here on out going forward, and I love him specifically this week. So there's Russell Wilson. Now, let's move on to my second and last start of the week at the quarterback position. I mean, I had to, guys. I had to. I was too tempted, and it's just too juicy as of right now, right? We have Ryan Fitzpatrick, a.k.a. Ryan Fitzmagic. Goodness gracious, this guy's been... he's been in our hearts all season long. For those of you who have owned him in the past and got those 30-point games from him, maybe the 50-point game in week 1, just depends. To be honest, he's just been incredible. But here's the thing. Since he got replaced, obviously, no one really thought he was going to come back. But Jameis just happened to force it into existence with all those interceptions he threw. Now, where do I see from Ryan Fitzpatrick? I mean, statistically, in the first 3 games of the season that he played while Jameis Winston was on suspension, he had thrown 400 yards per game and a total of 11 touchdowns on 4 interceptions. Against the Bears, we knew it was going to be a tough matchup in week 4. I even called it. I said he was going to get pulled from that game. You can go back. You can watch the film. For those of you who have been here for a while, I knew it was coming, right? So I don't know why Dirk Cutter didn't expect it to come. And he maybe should have just stuck with Russell. I keep saying Russell Wilson instead of Ryan Fitzpatrick or Jameis Winston. Goodness, I got to block his face out real quick. Anyway, so here's the way I see it. Ryan Fitzpatrick and this Tampa Bay Buccaneers offense, they work off of one tone, one speed. They're going to try to score as many points as they possibly can until the clock hits 0 at the end of the fourth quarter. Plain and simple. Their defense is not going to do them any favors. Playing against the Carolina Panthers this week, the Carolina Panthers, they are a fantastic offense. They have a lot of pieces, a lot of weapons, and they're going to score a lot of points. This Tampa Bay Buccaneers defense is going to give them at least 30 points, maybe even more. What does that force Ryan Fitzpatrick to do? That's going to force him to throw the ball. He may throw interceptions. Sure, he's just like Jameis Winston. But when these guys throw 3 picks, they'll end up throwing, 3 touchdowns. But I'm assuming this coming week, Ryan Fitzpatrick, just off of what we saw last week, he came out 11 for 15, 200 passing yards, 2 touchdowns in the second half of that game against Cincinnati Bengals. He looked like the better quarterback of this offense. He looked more comfortable within this offense. Jameis Winston's always trying to force plays while Ryan Fitzpatrick's looking like a stud back there. This coming week against the Panthers, it's going to be a shootout, right? The Panthers, they're going to score a lot of points. That's going to force the Tampa Bay Buccaneers offense to be fast-paced, and they're going to have to score through the air. If you own any running backs for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and you consider starting him, a.k.a. Peyton Barber, I wouldn't. Plain and simple, I wouldn't. Anyway, so that's Ryan Fitzpatrick. Goodness gracious. 400 yards in the first 3 weeks and a total of 11 passing touchdowns. Guys, you have to start him. If you own him, you have to start him. Anyway, so before we get into my rankings, I just want to go over some statistics at the quarterback position, like I mentioned before. Now, specifically, as you can see, at the statistics to my right, we have here fantasy points against. This is fantasy points that defenses have given to the quarterback position on an average weekly basis thus far this season through the first 8 weeks of the fantasy football season. The worst defense against the quarterback, that is Tampa Bay Buccaneers. We know for a fact that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, they give up 332 yards through the air on average, 3 touchdown passes on average. And, are we surprised? No. We know that they're a bad defense. It's something to keep an eye out on. That's why I've been preaching Carolina Panthers all week long, whether it's Funchess, DJ Moore, Christian McCaffrey, and eventually Greg Olsen. But these guys are for sure starts. The Atlanta Falcons, they don't have a great defense, but is Alex Smith capable enough to be able to act upon opportunity? That is the question. Alex Smith, he hasn't been great all season. He doesn't really have anybody to throw to. That's really not his fault. Maybe they should sign Des Bryant, give him a number one weapon. But other than that, Adrian Peterson has been this entire offense. He's going to be able to exploit this Falcons defense, but will Alex Smith be capable enough to do? I guess we'll just have to wait and see where I've ranked them. New Orleans, we know they're a terrible defense, but at least against the quarterback and wide receiver position in fantasy, right? Jared Goff is going to have his points. Guess what? Cooper Kupp is going to play this week, people. What does that mean? Jared Goff, start him up. Let's go. We'll see it. Anyway, Cincinnati's on a bye week. Pittsburgh. Look, Pittsburgh's defense, they're very good against the run, and they give up a lot of big plays. To the wide receiver position, they've given up a lot of big plays thus far this season. That helps Joe Flacco, who has a pretty good deep ball, and he has his weapons, John Brown, who is a deep ball threat. I'm getting sick. I'm already sick, but then I'm going to get even worse. But either way, it's just, look at outside. It's getting cold. California. Cold for me is like 60. So for some of you who live on the East Coast, you're sitting there and you're 30 with your shirt off. And you're like, what are you talking about, Andrew? 60's cold? That's summer for us. Well, you know what? That's what happens when you live in California your whole life. You don't experience shit like that. But either way, at least I can drive to the beach and relax right now. Anyway, I got to sneeze. And I hate that feeling so much. When you have to sneeze, but it just... okay. Anyway, where were we? Pittsburgh Steelers. They've given up a lot of points to the wide receiver position and the quarterback position thus far this season. Can Joe Flacco have a decent week this week? There's a possibility. He played well against the Steelers the last time they played at Pittsburgh. At home this week, he could have a good matchup. We know the Kansas City Chiefs struggle at defense, the Patriots struggle at defense, and the Lions struggle at defense. That obviously is going to help the respective quarterbacks that play them. Aaron Rodgers, maybe Baker Mayfield. We'll see how he plays this week, and or Kirk Cousins. Now, the defenses that clamp up on the quarterback. Seattle only gives 15 points per game to the quarterback. Does that hurt Phillip Rivers enough this week? I'm not sure. We'll see in the rankings. Baltimore Ravens, they clamp up at the quarterback position. How much is that going to hurt Ben Roethlisberger this coming week? Are they going to have to force the run, or can Ben Roethlisberger play through this defense? Who else? The Los Angeles Rams give the quarterback a struggle. Is Drew Brees going to, these are the questions, people. These are the statistics thus far this season through 8 weeks. Do with it as you may, but that's pretty much it. Other than this, let's get into my quarterback rankings because we can't be here all day. And this is going to be a shorter video. It's no big deal. There's only 18 guys to talk about. It's not going to take an hour like my other videos. Anyway, so week 9 quarterback rankings for fantasy football. Shall we begin? Number 1, Patrick Mahomes. Oh my God. What a surprise. It's Patrick Mahomes at number 1. It's no big deal, guys. Patrick Mahomes is a stud. Just the amount of weapons he has. With Sammy Watkins, actually, one of the things that I saw Tyreek Hill was limited at practice, or he didn't practice. I don't know what it was, but he was definitely limited. We knew he had a hamstring injury. I mentioned that yesterday on my wide receiver rankings video. If he ends up not playing, that is a 100% jump in opportunity for Sammy Watkins. We know Travis Kelce and Kareem Hunt, they're going to get theirs, but Sammy Watkins, just he gets his little upgrade. If Tyreek Hill does not play this week, he's a slower version of Tyreek Hill, a little bit bigger, but he's still a great deep threat option and a good wide receiver, good enough to at least be a number 1, a top 12 wide receiver if given the opportunity. We saw him. He was the number 2 wide receiver in fantasy last week with those 2 touchdown grabs and those yards. Anyway, so Patrick Mahomes plays against the Cleveland Browns this coming week. Cleveland Browns, is their defense good enough? Against the wide receiver position, they've given up a lot of points. Against the running back position, they've given up a lot of points. Who are they going to be able to stop? Can they stop anybody, especially coming off of this entire firing of the coaching staff, the offensive coordinator? What am I looking for here? Oh, goodness. How many points per game do the Cleveland Browns give up to the quarterback position? I got to F3 this. Ooh, they don't give many points to the quarterback position. They only give 18.3 points to the quarterback position. Now, am I sitting here like worried that Patrick Mahomes is not going to have a good week? Absolutely not. Patrick Mahomes is going to throw 3 to 4 touchdowns this game because that's just what he does. I mean, that's it. Plain and simple. Number 2, Cam Newton playing against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers defense. What is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers defense going to do to try to stop Cam Newton? They're going to try everything. They're going to send heat. They're going to drop 9. They're going to try to do some stupid stuff. But guess what? It's not going to work. Plain and simple, it's not going to work. Cam Newton, this offense, they've been, pretty good, and especially last week, what they were able to do against that Baltimore defense, make them look like just an ordinary, mediocre defense. This coming week against the worst defense in the NFL. The Tampa Bay defense is so bad. Cam Newton's going to be awesome. He's my number 2. Number 3, Jared Goff, playing against that very weak secondary of the New Orleans Saints this coming week with Cooper Kupp back. His special weapon, secret agent Cooper Kupp, out of the slot. My goodness, the Rams are going to be full force again, and they're going to be very fun to watch this week. It's going to be a great matchup in the NFC. An 8-0 team versus the 6-1 Saints. It's going to be fun, ladies and gentlemen. But Jared Goff is going to have a great week, just like this past week with 3 touchdown passes against secondaries that aren't particularly great. Jared Goff succeeds. I understand you may be worried about the Todd Gurley in the red zone stealing touchdowns left, right, and center. But with Cooper Kupp there, I think it'll be able to balance itself out. I think Jared Goff has a very good week. He's my number 3. Number 4, we have Aaron Rodgers going into New England to play against the Patriots defense. Aaron Rodgers needs to pick up wins. He at this point, what are they, 3-1? He's got to be able to turn the ship around, and he's going to be able to do that through the passing game. I know they traded Ty Montgomery as the scapegoat this past week, but it's no big deal. Devontae Adams, Geronimo Allison, Randall Cobb, Valdez Scantling, Equanimeous St. Brown. He's got a plethora of wide receivers. Jimmy Graham. He's got enough guys to catch the ball. Aaron Jones will be able to maybe figure it out in the passing game out of the backfield. But I think the Patriots defense, this Patriots team, they're going to have to score because Aaron Rodgers is going to be able to put up a lot of points. And I think it's going to be a shootout. He's my number 4 this coming week at the quarterback position. Number 5, my first start of the week, as I mentioned, Russell Wilson playing against the Los Angeles Chargers, who have given up the 14th most points to the quarterback position, only allowing about 21 points per game to the quarterback position in 6-point per passing touchdown leagues. Where do I see Russell Wilson this week? It's just plain and simple. As I mentioned before, he's got a great offense around him. The run game has just been so perfect. And as of late, Russell Wilson, he hasn't thrown the ball a lot. If you look at his passing attempts, let me see if I can pull these up really quickly. His passing attempts pretty much show that he doesn't really have to have a large volume like Andrew Luck does, throwing the ball 60 times. Russell Wilson's been able to do it very efficiently. Okay, here it is. You ready for this? In the last 3 weeks, he's thrown the ball 21, 23, and 17 times, right? Completing only 13, 17, and 14 passes in those 3 games. Well, how many? Okay, so that's 30. Okay, so in 34 passing completions, all right, in 34 passing completions, he has 9 touchdowns. I mean, if you think about the percentage, it's almost, okay, it's not, right? But it's almost 30%. I think it's about 30% of his passes are touchdowns. That's an insane rate, guys. And going forward, he's going to be able to clean it up. And don't forget, guys, I mean, there is a potential that Russell Wilson, he can make plays with his legs. It's not like he's turned into Brady overnight. He's going to be able to make plays left, right, and center. I don't think this defense is good enough to be able to give him any problems. Russell Wilson, you're my number 5, baby. Let's go. Fire him up. All right, number 6, we have Tom Brady. In the same conversation as Aaron Rodgers, Tom Brady at home is great. He's going to have a good game this week. Is he going to be as successful as Rodgers? Well, I don't know if Rodgers' run game is going to get many points. On the other hand, I think there is a good chance that James White or Sony Michel this coming week steals a touchdown on the goal line, vultures something from Tom Brady. And that's expectable. That happens, and that's fantasy football. That's why I have him a little bit lower ranked. Otherwise, I see him having just as good as a game, and I see him being pretty decent. I know you guys may be disappointed in the performance he had against the Buffalo Bills, but that's something to keep your eye out on. The Buffalo Bills, we've seen them be successful this season on the defensive side of the ball. Offensively, they're a trash can. They're a dumpster fire. But defensively, they have been pretty efficient, and they've held themselves into games. They're holding on tightly to try to make some plays defensively, but at the end of the day, it's not going to be successful for the Bills, but we'll get into that later. Either way, Tom Brady this week, he's my number 6 quarterback. Number 7, Ryan Fitzpatrick, my second start of the week. I am of the utmost confidence that Ryan Fitzpatrick will have a good week. I am putting him above majority of the other quarterbacks, guys that you may have drafted pretty early. And I'm talking about a guy that you may have just picked up off the waiver wire. For those of you that have a quarterback on bye, let's say, for example, you were running with Carson Wentz or Andrew Luck or Andy Dalton in the last couple weeks, Ryan Fitzpatrick is that guy. He's going to fill in the spot. I am 100% confident in his production this week. I think he has a pretty solid floor, and his ceiling is there. Let's say, for example, okay, they get blown out in the first half. Cam Newton comes out. They put 27 points on the board, and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers managed to put up 7. Okay, that doesn't mean Ryan Fitzpatrick gives up. We saw it against Pittsburgh earlier this season on Monday Night Football. Even when they get blown out early, Ryan Fitzpatrick pulls his team through the game. He pretty much carries them with his arm. His decision making, it could be questionable at times, but this coming week against the Panthers, I have a lot of confidence in him. I'm starting him up in my leagues. Let's go. Ryan Fitzpatrick, number 7. Number 8, Phillip Rivers. All right. As I mentioned before in the statistics of points given to the quarterback position by respective defenses, Phillip Rivers should have the toughest matchup this week amongst all quarterbacks. For the Seattle Seahawks have only given up 15 points to the quarterback position on a weekly basis on average in 6-point per passing touchdown leagues. Now, does that scare me? Absolutely not. Here's the thing. Who's honestly been able to slow down Phillip Rivers in the Chargers offense this season? Nobody. The only team that was able to honestly stop Phillip Rivers from scoring a lot of points was the Tennessee Titans. Now, why exactly was that? Well, the Tennessee Titans, they play a methodical offense in which they will kill the clock. They run for 3 yards, run for 3 yards, run for 3 yards, and then they go forward on 4th down. They get a first down, and guess what? 6 minutes off the clock has disappeared. That literally is what happened in London the last time they played. But who's honestly been able to stop, this Chargers offense? They have been absolutely amazing. Phillip Rivers this season has been fantastic. If you've been around since the preseason, I've been preaching Phillip Rivers all season long. I mean, statistically, he's been fantastic. 17 passing touchdowns and only 3 interceptions. Already, 2,000 passing yards? He's been great. He is a consistent 25 points per game. Just looking at his statistics, no one's really been able to slow him down. He hasn't thrown less than 2 touchdowns in a game this season, and I don't think that's going to change, especially with all the rushing touchdowns that Melvin Gordon has in the red zone. He's pretty much, both these LA teams, as I mentioned before, Todd Gurley, Melvin Gordon, they steal touchdowns from their quarterback in the red zone. And he's still been fantastic. Imagine if Melvin Gordon didn't have those 3 touchdown games like he's had earlier this season. Phillip Rivers would be even that much more valuable. I don't think the Seattle Seahawks are going to give them too much trouble. And they play at home this week, so it's going to be fun. Either way, let's move on to the next guy, Matt Ryan. He's in a dynamic offense. Yes, their run game has not been there, but they've got the 3 wide receivers and the tight end that they need. Julio, Mohamed Sanu, and Calvin Ridley on top of Austin Hooper. A little bit of help out of the backfield with Tevin Coleman. They're going to be successful. I understand that this Redskins defense has been playing pretty good as of late. They've improved their defense with HaHa Clinton-Dix in the secondary with that trade they made before the trade deadline. All things say that it's going to be a closer game and maybe the Redskins end up picking up a win. But I wouldn't be surprised if Matt Ryan came out off this bye week with Julio Jones. Maybe Julio Jones catches his first touchdown this season. And I think they're going to have themselves a pretty good game. And I like Matt Ryan this week a lot. He's my number 9 quarterback. Number 10, we have Drew Brees. Here's the thing about Drew Brees, which scares me a little bit. He is also subject to my running backs steal a lot of my points, considering I have a 2-headed monster behind me. But that's exactly what we expected. So here's the thing. The statistic from last season, right? Drew Brees last season threw for the least amount of attempts that he's ever thrown for last season in 2017. Least amount of attempts, least amount of completions, least amount of passing yards, and least touchdown passes that he's ever thrown since coming to New Orleans. Right? That was the statistic from last season. Why? Because Alvin Kamara and Mark Ingram, both of them, they just eat up all of Drew Brees' opportunity. When the offense is working through the run game, why would you stop that? Why wouldn't you continue to feed these backs and keep the ball out of Drew Brees' hands to keep him protected and only force him to throw the ball when he has to? That's exactly where they're going back into. That's why he only scored, 8 fantasy points this past week? Because they never really had to force the issue. Drew Brees never really had to throw. It wasn't a shootout. He didn't have to come out and throw for 6-7 touchdowns. That wasn't the game script. This coming week, I think he has a very good opportunity he's going to be better than he was last week. He's going to be a 2-touchdown kind of guy. But I still think there's a potential for Mark Ingram, Alvin Kamara on the ground to soak up a lot of that fantasy production that Drew Brees would usually get. Anyway, that's why he's at number 10, but he's still a good quarterback. He's a top 10 quarterback this week. Number 11, Kirk Cousins playing against the Detroit Lions defense. Detroit Lions defense, they're not great. Okay, we know that for a fact. On the ground, they're not great. In the passing game, they're not going to be able to stop Thielen and Diggs. That's going to be a very difficult matchup. And we know that the Detroit Lions, they like to run a man defense. So when you try to run a man there, I don't know. Against 2 number 1 wide receivers like Diggs and Thielen, I don't think it's going to be able to work. You don't have enough good corners on that defense. You have Darius Slay, sure, but other than him, I don't think it's going to be able to solidify any sort of stop against that offense that's going to be pretty successful. I don't know if Dalvin Cook's playing. If he does, it's going to help this offense because anything like any other weapons that they can acquire is going to help. They need to continue to run the ball. So this coming week, even though he has a good matchup, I've ranked him a little bit lower because I think they're going to turn to running the ball a little bit more this week with Latavius Murray and Dalvin Cook if he plays. Kirk Cousins, even though I've been high on him, he just hasn't been producing as of late. So I have him at 11 this week. All right, number 12, we have Mitch Trubisky. So here's the thing. Here's my psyche behind this, my reasoning. Mitchell Trubisky has an opportunity to have a fantastic game. We know the Buffalo Bills offense isn't great. Against the Bears defense, the Bears are going to be able to destroy them, right? I think the starting quarterback's Nathan Peterman. They just signed Barkley, the old USC quarterback. Where's Matt Barkley? And then they also signed Terrell Pryor. Maybe Terrell Pryor gets some snaps at quarterback this week. I don't know. We'll see. But either way, Mitch Trubisky, if he was ever going to struggle against the defense, I could see it happening against the Bills. The Bills were able to hold Tom Brady. What do you think they could potentially do against Mitch Trubisky? Just saying. I trust him enough to be a top 12 quarterback. He's a QB1 in my eyes this week. But I'm just being a little bit hesitant because I think there's a potential that this Bills defense puts on the clamps and gives them a tough time this week. So just keep an eye out on that. Mitch Trubisky at number 12. Number 13, we have Ben Roethlisberger against one of the toughest defenses in the league. And they have to play the Baltimore Ravens at Baltimore. That's a tough task. That's a tough ask. As of right now, I'm a little bit lower on Ben Roethlisberger this week. I still think he should be started, right? Many of you, okay, let's say, for example, you have a guy that's above him. Like, I might consider Ben Roethlisberger over Trubisky. I might. Over Cousins, Brees, no, I wouldn't be able to do that. As of right now, he's just below that kind of a QB1 tier just because of the matchup. I'm just a little worried because of it. That's why I have him a little bit lower. Number 14, we have Deshaun Watson. Okay, I think I talked about this a little bit earlier in the week in my prior video. Deshaun Watson, I think he's going to struggle this week. Everybody may be thinking, oh my God, they've won the last 5 games. They're fantastic. They're unstoppable. They're going to be great. He threw 5 touchdowns last week. Oh my goodness, the run game looks great. The defense looks great. I got to start him. All right. If that's your opinion, go for it. Start him. I'm not going to tell you not to start him. But here's my argument for Deshaun Watson. They play against a defensive pass rush that is very, very good. As I mentioned before, Derek Wolfe, Pico, Von Miller, Bradley Chubb, Shane Ray, they're going to get off the edge. They're going to put some pressure on him. This offensive line of the Houston Texans, they're one of the worst, if not the worst offensive line in the NFL. I think Deshaun Watson is going to have some trouble. Now, he could end up, throwing for 3 touchdowns. It's entirely possible. But is it likely to happen? I'm not completely certain about that. Therefore, I'm going to rank him a little bit lower. I think in Denver, it's going to be a very difficult matchup for them. And I think he's going to struggle. He's my number 14. Number 15, Matthew Stafford. As soon as this running game has continued to kind of pick up pace, Kerryon Johnson's continuing to pick up carries out of this backfield, Matthew Stafford is not throwing the ball as much. His average attempts per game has gone down. His touchdown passes have gone down. And really, he hasn't been a relevant quarterback this season comparatively to the other guys that have stepped up. Matthew Stafford was usually a top 10 quarterback every single week when he was throwing the ball 50-plus times. But as of right now, when he's not able to do that and he's not able to find, consistent 3-touchdown games to help you guys out, I personally don't trust him going forward into this matchup against the Vikings. It's not a terrible matchup, but it is a tougher one, especially if the Vikings are fully healthy, which I expect them to be this week with Anthony Barr coming back. So I think he's not gonna struggle to a point, but I think he's comparatively to the guys above him, I can't trust him as much. All right, number 16, 17, and 18. We have Joe Flacco playing against the Pittsburgh Steelers. As we saw statistically a little bit earlier, the Pittsburgh Steelers do give up a lot of points to the quarterback position and give up a lot of points to the wide receiver position on a weekly basis. This coming week, Joe Flacco at home, the defense is going to be popping, and it's a division game where they have to pick up a win. I like Joe Flacco this week, and I like him going forward. Hopefully he can turn around, flip the ship, flip the script. Either one doesn't matter. Just get it done, Joe Flacco. Get us some fantasy value for some of us who are streaming him this week. I'm streaming him in a 2QB league. We got to get it done sometimes. We got to trust these kind of guys. I like the matchup as of right now. All right, number 17, we have Dak Prescott playing on Monday Night Football against the Tennessee Titans. Why do I trust Dak Prescott? I'm telling you, Dak Prescott at home plays better. On top of that, the Dallas Cowboys play better at home. I don't think that... Okay, here's the issue. This could be the only issue that I potentially see. Both these teams love to run the ball. Okay, both these teams are good at defense. Now, is that going to kill clock, or is that going to force them to eventually have to pass the ball? Either way, I think both these teams are similarly built as of right now, with a decent quarterback that is mobile, running games that they rely upon, and defenses that clamp up and try to help them win games. They look like they're the same teams, but they're really not. Okay, the Dallas Cowboys, they are far better than the Tennessee Titans. I think Dak Prescott, with the addition of Amari Cooper, he's going to find some success. His offense is going to open up. Cole Beasley could have himself a good week, potentially. And I think this matchup for Dak Prescott, I could see him having, 2 touchdown passes, 50 yards on the ground rushing, 20 points plus in fantasy football. I could see that. He's my number 17. My last guy I wanted to mention, Alex Smith, has a fantastic matchup. But when you don't have anybody to throw the ball to, when your number 1 wide receiver is Josh Doxson or Jordan Reed, or, you can't even find Chris Thompson out of the backfield because he's not healthy, how can we have any sort of confidence in playing you? I have a very little amount of confidence in Alex Smith. He has such a good matchup. It's a damn shame that he's going to throw it away this week. But if you're forced to have to pick up a quarterback off the waivers, I think Alex Smith, comparatively to the other guys, the matchup is such a juicy one that he has the best opportunity, and that's why I would go with Alex Smith as my number 18 quarterback of the week. That is basically it. Those are my rankings. I want to thank everybody for watching. For those of you who haven't already, please go down and throw up a comment. I'll get to them by Saturday at least for sure. I'll sit there for about 8 hours answering questions because that's usually how it goes. And if you haven't already, subscribe, click that like button, and I'll see you guys next time.